The New York Rangers are obviously going to be active this offseason, and with free agency coming up, and now with the New York Rangers having, of course, answered that big question around Chris Kreider, and they, of course, ended up trading him away officially over to the Anaheim Ducks and were able to get rid of his entire contract. The Rangers, of course, did not have to retain any money, so they opened up an additional $6.5 million in cap space, which will definitely allow this team to do a lot more this offseason. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at a pretty interesting article here from the Hockey Writers, and they end up making an article here, well, Sam Haynes does, about the New York Rangers' biggest free agency needs, and that's what we're going to take a look at in today's video. We're going to break this article down here and, of course, talk a lot about the New York Rangers. So the first headline they have here is the Zibanejad question, and first off, I think it personally, for me, is pretty clear here. I want to see Zibanejad on the wing. I think, having him as that kind of extra centerman is kind of nice there, but I think going forward into next season there, I hope Mike Sullivan has the plan of keeping Zibanejad on the wing there, because we saw Zibanejad engaged a lot more in the game there. I think he just overall looked a lot more kind of confident again out there on the ice, looked like just a lot better of a player overall as well. Once he made that switch over to wing there, right, he was producing a lot more offensively. He wasn't quite that liability that he was, honestly, at moments defensively when he was playing, center earlier on in the season. So to me, from what I saw there this past season there from Zibanejad in that kind of, first part where he was playing center compared to the second part where he was on wing, it was a drastic change. It was a major change. So to me, I don't know why you'd try and put it back on center there. I think I would rather see him stay on wing. Now, if you wanted to have that 1-2-3 punch of course, like JT Miller, Trocheck, Zibanejad, I can understand that. But to me, with what we saw from Zibanejad once he made that switch over to wing, I am definitely in favor of keeping Zibanejad on wing and then going out there and adding in a new third-line center this offseason. Now, I don't think it has to be, someone who is like a Sam Bennett level kind of guy, but this team definitely needs to go out there this offseason, and I would say keep Zibanejad on that wing and go out there and find a new third-line center. There are definitely going to be some options, I would imagine. Of course, definitely via free agency. There are a few names that I'll make some videos on in the coming kind of weeks here before we actually get into free agency, but I'll definitely have some videos kind of talking about certain candidates, and there are a few kind of maybe under the radar kind of guys that could end up becoming some great potential third line centers, and of course also via trade I'm sure there'll be some guys come up. But like I said, I think I saw a pretty drastic difference in kind of Zibanejad's overall kind of game and impact on this team once he did switch over to wing from center. So I don't know really why you'd try him back there once again at center. I mean, if, obviously Mike Sullivan wants to, then I have a little faith possibly if he believes Zibanejad can still be a solid center. But with him making $8.5 million and what we saw out of him on wing, I wouldn't want to lose that there. That can still be a more than quality player, and he may not earn up to every single dollar of that 8.5, compared to what we originally kind of hoped for out of him. But I think, him switching to wing there was a pretty big difference, and he definitely had a much better overall impact on this team. So to me, I wouldn't want to risk it there. I would just keep him on wing, and you definitely can still have a more than quality player as a Zibanejad, just him being a much better player on wing than what he would be doing at center, in my opinion. And next up here, we have two headlines that I kind of tied into one, and that is Adam Fox's defense partner and the left defense core. And I think it's pretty obvious that in free agency, this team is going to have to look at some defensemen to kind of acquire to make the necessary upgrades for this team. I mean, this team has to make some upgrades on the defense core this offseason, and there definitely is going to be some players in free agency that I think could be some pretty great upgrades for this team. And especially on the left side there, you've got guys like Gavrikov and Provorov, who, especially Gavrikov, I think would be an amazing fit and an amazing pickup for this team. Now, they're not going to be cheap. They're definitely going to be fairly expensive with the cap skyrocketing up there and with many, many teams needing defensemen. These guys aren't going to be cheap, but I still think, depending on what the price gets to, it might end up being worth it. And at the end of the day, I think this team has some pretty clear and major issues on the defensive side of things, mainly on that left side there. I mean, on the right side there, we're pretty solidified. You've got Adam Fox, Braden Schneider, and Will Borgen. I think that's a pretty solid 1-2-3 kind of punch there. Not too bad at all. You have the number one guy there, and of course, Adam Fox, and then two pretty solid kind of, second pairing caliber guys at moments there in Schneider and Borgen. I'm hoping Schneider can eventually, hopefully this season, even kind of take that big step in his game there, maybe kind of turn into that kind of great higher end second pairing guy that I still think he can definitely become. So you've got two solid guys there in Borgen and Schneider. You got Fox on the right side there, so that's pretty much solidified. But on the left side there, you've got like Urho Vakanainen, Keandre Miller, and like Carson Soucy. So there are definitely some big question marks there, and I think Zach Jones is more than likely going to end up leaving this team this offseason, whether that's to go to another team to play in the AHL or the NHL. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't quite think we're going to see Zach Jones come back to the Rangers, but it's definitely possible. But basically, you've got Soucy, Miller, and of course, Vakanainen as the kind of left side right now, and that's just not good enough. You have to go out there and make some big upgrades. I am okay if they do look to try and trade away Carson Soucy. You open up an extra about $3.25 million cap space. That can go a long way, so I'm all in favor of trading him away if you can, and you don't have to give up too much to get off that contract, because the team obviously gave up a third-round pick to pick him up at this past deadline, and then now they're obviously in a spot where they'd like to get off that contract for anything, really. If they could get off him for nothing, I'm sure they would. So I think personally it's kind of a tough spot there. They have some needs on the left side for sure, some big ones, and another big question mark there is, of course, with Keandre Miller. I'm kind of expecting him to get traded away there, because there's also kind of rumors and talk coming out there that Keandre doesn't want to sign a long-term deal with the Rangers, or the Rangers don't want to as well. So to me, we're probably going to see Keandre Miller get traded away, which like I said, I've been in favor of for quite some time now. I think as long as they get back the right value, I'm more than okay with it. So if you trade him away as well, then you definitely have some big question marks and holes to fill on that left side. And that isn't obviously ideal, but it also might not be the worst thing in the world either, because this defense core wasn't that great this past season, obviously. So if you are switching up a lot of it, then it might not be the worst thing. And a guy like Vakanainen, I think, can be a fine kind of number 6/7 defenseman there. If he's your kind of your extra defenseman or that number 6 guy, you can be okay with that. But guys like Soucy, and with kind of how he played with the Rangers, I'm not quite certain I want to have him in a kind of full-time top 4 defenseman role heading into this season there. Don't think I want to see that. And then obviously Keandre Miller, I would rather see traded away than kind of re-signed personally. So I'm hopeful we see some big changes there. I'm hopeful we can see a guy like Gavrikov added in there. And, of course, hopefully we can see Adam Fox finally get a really great kind of shutdown defenseman to go alongside him, which I definitely think he's been missing for quite some time now. And obviously Lindgren has been good at moments throughout the past there, but I think for the most part, as of late, over the last couple seasons there, he wasn't too great with this team. So adding in a new kind of top 4 caliber defenseman to go alongside Fox, you can be that kind of two-way shutdown guy. Ideally, a big, tougher defenseman would be a great add in my opinion. And next up here, we've got Play the Youth, and I'm actually going to read what he had to say here in kind of the little paragraph he gave about this headline, because I think it's a big one. I think this really is one that the Rangers need to take seriously here, and that is, playing the youth there and giving some more opportunities to some of their top young players/prospects. And first off here, he ends up saying, the Rangers need to give their young players real opportunities to perform and develop. For too long, the team has defaulted to veteran stopgaps while younger players sit in limited roles or get buried in the lineup. That has to change. Will Cuylle earned his spot last season and should now be given a real chance to play top 6 minutes. Perreault should start the season in a meaningful role. Brett Berard deserves an extended look. Brennan Othmann shouldn't be stashed away or used sparingly. He needs to play. He also goes on to say, at some point, the Rangers have to trust their development system and start using their cheap, controllable talent to fill roster gaps. Relying on veterans in every depth spot isn't sustainable. It causes salary cap issues. The only way to find out what these players can become is to give them real minutes and let them work through mistakes. The team can't keep making the same errors with every high-end forward prospect who comes through the system. Play the kids. And I have been saying a lot of this for a very, very long time. And, hypothetically, let's kind of imagine this Rangers team this past season was actually a very good team. And it was like a team from the previous year where this team was, like the top team in the regular season there, of course, and then still go all the way to the, conference finals there against Florida, the eventual Stanley Cup champions, where they lost in Game 6. But let's imagine that it's an extra season to go, but this time around, we have Will Cuylle, who's not playing in a fourth-line role in his rookie season there, but he's actually playing like he did last season there, where he's that true top 6 caliber forward, capable of putting up, 50-something points there or whatever, being still a top 5 hitter once again, while playing that great two-way game, helping kill penalties. Well, imagine if you have that guy but on like a $925K deal, right? That can definitely do a lot of wonders for a contending team if you have a guy of that caliber who can be a top 6 caliber forward or a top 4 caliber defenseman or at least a really great third line kind of forward there, right? If you have those kind of guys, they're on these cheap deals that are like $1 million or less on their rookie deals. That can really help a team out quite a bit. So that's kind of why we need to see guys like Offman and Berard and Perreault get these opportunities there and really try and see what they can do. Because if you can have these guys playing meaningful roles, having some good impact on this team while making less than $1 million per season, that is such a great thing for the team's cap situation there. So I think it might be a little tough to get all three of them in on day one, but I think at the end of the day there, you got to give some opportunities, some real looks to some of these young guys here, like an Offman, like a Berard, like a Perreault, because these are the guys who you need to hopefully kind of, help fill in the role of a guy like Panarin once he leaves there, or help kind of fill in some of the gaps of losing, all those goals from previous season there from a guy like Chris Kreider now, of course. So you need some of these young guys coming up here to help kind of replenish what you're going to eventually lose. And I just think you got to give them some more opportunities and chances. And hopefully we see that this upcoming season there. But of course, with Mike Sullivan coming in there, we'll have to wait and see. It's definitely going to be interesting kind of, his plan there with these young guys, because guys like Offman, Berard, and Perreault, they're all kind of right there. They're all maybe like deserving of having an opportunity to begin next season there with this Rangers team. But do they all actually get that look there? We'll have to wait and see. But at the end of the day there, this team absolutely has to do a better job at kind of developing and playing their youth and giving opportunities to them. Otherwise, this team will never become a real, consistent, cup contending team for years and years to come. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video. Do you agree with some of my takes here and thoughts? Do you disagree? Of course, let me know in the comment section down below kind of what left-handed defenseman do you think this team needs to add in there? Do you think they need to go out there and add in a kind of true kind of high-end guy to go alongside Foxy, or do you think he can kind of manage alongside a kind of lower-tier guy? Let me know your thoughts on that. Do you want to see Zibanejad kind of stay on wing there? Do you want to see him revert back to center? And of course, do you agree with me in thinking that the Rangers need to give more opportunity to their young guys? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next one. But of course, don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one. And let's go Rangers.